Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, or good day wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the next episode of No Dice, No Glory. Sponsored by our jobs that actually pay us money, we're coming to you not at all live from an abandoned arms factory deep under a mountain in West Virginia. We are proud to proffer to you the finest in wargaming coverage. Without any further ado, let's get this show on the road.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Tales of the Sail, episode 14, the Sun episode. I am joined from many other locations across the eastern/northeastern United States by Glenn Silence of the Lambs Van Meter.
Hey everyone.
Tyler Pirate Booty Stone.
Hi, how are you?
And I am Tom Chairborne Mullane. And we're here with our March episode. We're actually being pretty good, I think, about consistently recording towards the beginning of the month. But we had like a deadline to worry about this time, right?
Yeah, we implemented artificial deadlines.
We gave ourselves a deadline because we had a trivia contest, which we will get to later. But
these are the only things that motivate us anyway.
That's all I got.
Yeah.
I mean, what else am I going to do? Plan lessons? Help grade papers? No. Educate children. I'm doing air quotes. You can't see me if you're listening, but just be aware that there's air quotes. So let's start off with Tyler and tell us what you've been up to since we last recorded.
So I've been working on the paint nights. I've done some of the African warriors, and I'm actually excited because apparently whenever we get the plastic sets, we'll be able to do full armies of those, and it won't just be the same guys in poses or picking through kits like some people have done now.
I didn't know there was a plastic set for the African warriors guys. There is?
Not for the Africans. You'll be able to make them out of the natives.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Which to my recollection, the factions, the Africans are kind of lumped in with the South American natives.
Yeah, they are.
Oh, neat. Okay. Yeah, they'd be working together, I imagine.
Mm-hmm. And then I have my World War I stuff that I am just kind of grinding through. I work from home now, and my paint store was kind of near-ish where my company's headquarters office was, and that office has moved very far. So I have no reason to drive to where I get paints, and I am going to have to resort to buying them online now. I don't like doing
that far a trip.
It's not somewhere that I want to drive just for paint. It's like 45 minutes out.
Okay.
I like to try to support my locals, but with everything being locked down, I have no other reason to go there other than to like grab a couple pots of paint.
There are definitely stores near me that I try to make a point of just buying some paint pots if I'm nearby, but most of the ones that are nearby are like an hour and 20 minutes away. And so I'm not going to, spend 3 hours in the car to buy some paint.
Yeah, this place was like 15 minutes from where like I said, from the main office. So whenever we had trainings and things like that we needed to be in person, I was already in the area and would just stop by the store and pick stuff up, even if it was just like a pack of magic cards or something. But
how much did you get painted when I left paint night last Friday? Because obviously I left early because I need my beauty sleep and I'm old.
I pinned all of my pikemen, and I cleaned up a bunch of models as far as like clipping off flash and filing them. But I only really finished the Africans.
Have either of you used pikemen in a game? Because like I just finished painting all the pikemen that I had, and I don't think I've ever seen them used. I don't have a huge sample size, obviously, but what has been your experience?
I haven't had occasion yet.
I've seen them on the table once. We used them. Actually, Mitch and I had a list that had pikemen present. It was a defending an island kind of multiplayer scenario that we did, a participation game. And we stuck the pikemen at kind of the top of a bluff and bordered in by buildings on each side, so that the main route in would have to take you through the pikemen. They got shot up. They definitely didn't survive until the end of the game. I don't know how much more they stalled the enemy than a unit of like sailor musketeers would have. But they are cheap kind of blocker troops. Good on a defensive because they get there.
They look cool as models, you know.
They do look like cool models, yeah.
I've seen them in several games. I don't know how those games turned out. I wasn't, you know. One time was when I was doing that giant demo with 14 people. One of the tables was two fairly colonial European armies, so it was fairly pike and shot armies going at it. And then I know Eric has used them several times to mixed results.
Here's a historical question for Tyler, because I feel like he's most likely to know. That is meant as a slight at Glenn. Glenn has much knowledge, but like when you extend the timeline into the Queen Anne's War period, like the Raise the Black stuff does, things like that, like their tactics are starting to shift, right? And you're getting. I feel like there's kind of a narrow window where do you see the pikemen and the musketeers working in close proximity? Is that kind of like over by the 17 early teens, or
for the most part it's over by the 1700s. By the time you get to 1700, it's even, I want to say 1690. You do
Civil War is where you really start seeing that go away.
Okay.
Well, they started adopting bayonets in like the 1680s into the 1690s, and you saw smaller and smaller complements of pikemen. They were still useful. And then also you have the outliers like the Swedish Gaupa, I don't know how you pronounce it, tactic. The Carolingians, they used their pikemans for a lot longer than anyone else did.
But it hadn't occurred to me until thinking about it now. I'm like, oh yeah, the height of it would have been like mid 17th century.
Yeah, the Carolingians. Sorry, not the Carolingians. It's a completely different group of people. They determined that pikes were really useful because they were longer than a bayonet. So as soon as everyone else switched to, bayonet tactics, the Swedish were like, oh, this is fantastic. We'll just level pikes at you and stab you from twice as far away.
Oh yeah, that's true. It'll be like Alexander the Great style.
There's the whole getting shot on the way in thing.
There is, and that's they had a really specific tactic for dealing with that. It was kind of like a glass cannon strategy.
Huh. I really know very little about the mass field battles of the time period, so it's interesting. But anyway, Glenn, what have you been painting? What have you been doing?
Yeah, well, I've been painting. So with paint nights, I was painting musket sailors, and then after you left, I had actually, I was having child issues for a while, but once you were gone, Samuel decided to calm down, and I was able to actually get good work done on my Milicianos to the point where I actually got to finish a batch of them this weekend.
Nice.
Which I wasn't expecting.
Well, you had told me that my voice was putting your son to sleep, so
yeah,
I'm happy to help.
Yeah. So, yeah, my New Year's resolution is to get. I did it with points for the Dutch and Spanish, and then actual models with the Great War stuff. But I'm figuring I need about 200 models total painted between those four, and I'm currently sitting at 45 painted this year. And I'm not afraid to lump the other 8 Milicianos I had painted in, so I'm technically at 53 out of 200.
That's a pretty solid start, I have to say.
Considering we're at the end of February, or not March. But yeah, I'm on track. But beyond that, I've also been doing a little bit of like light research, trying to work on putting together that French and Indian Wars narrative campaign, specifically for King William's War. I did decide to go and up it to 12 scenarios. So it could be useful with a club to do like a monthly scenario kind of thing. Or you could do
That would be a really cool way to run it.
Or you could do 2 a month for 6 months. Which, once everything opens back up in a couple months, might be just enough to get us to October.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then we know what happens. We get delivered our Kickstarter on time.
Yep.
There will be no problem, or
Not at
delay
all.
of any kind. And if there is, I'm gonna complain about it. I'm gonna send Mike daily emails being like, Mike, I know there's things outside of your control, but could you just sail to China in a canoa and get me the boxes of things that I want?
I think we can be generous and allow him a Paragua.
That's fair. Let's give him a sail.
Yeah.
We want the canoe in the open ocean. It's too difficult.
Yeah. We all know he can sail, so we'll give him at least that advantage.
He can sail, yeah. He's actually, yeah. He's a multi-talented dude. All right. I almost started reading the random things that you put in the show notes for me because
Don't do that.
The exact one that should not read.
Yeah, exactly. Glenn's like, remember, Tom, don't read the stupid garbage that we put in there. Glenn is very much on top of things, and he wrote up the show notes and stuff, which helps us just kind of stay organized. I realize it doesn't seem like we're very organized, and we're not, but I mean, we kind of are. We have a plan. There's an outline, and I traditionally put in the stupidest things I can think of for Glenn and Tyler as placeholders when we're trying to figure out what we've been up to. Moving past these things and not reading them aloud, I will say that I had a vacation recently, which mostly consisted of sitting in my house and not doing anything, as is tradition for the past year, right? I thought I would be able to use it as an excuse to get a lot of painting done, and that didn't quite happen the way that I would have worked out. But I will say that I made some progress on things. When I looked at the amount of stuff I have painted since the beginning of the year, I have painted around 50 models, which is not bad.
Yeah, looking back, it's impressive. Like, I don't think I've ever painted so much so fast.
And I really credit that entirely with making bets with you because it motivates me to get the stuff done.
And I refuse to lose.
Yeah. And so far we're tit for tat, going strong. It's been 3 in a row, I think, that we both have been able to pull it off. This month we both pulled it off again, and we'll get into that. But yeah, I've done a lot. The other thing that I started to do was most of the goals I have are terrain oriented, like for looking back on resolution stuff. And the big thing I needed for the terrain is I do stuff in kind of phases and spurts, and I needed enough bases for things. And so I took the opportunity when it was warm out a bit up here in Connecticut/New York, to get outside into the garage and use the jigsaw to cut out a bunch of stuff from MDX board and then sand down the edges to give me a nice solid set of irregular bases that I can use to build like rocky outcroppings, jungle pieces in terrain, ruins, and things like that. And so I have all the bases and stuff cut, and I'm going to experiment with using really hard secured corrugated cardboard. And I know I've been warned about it warping. I feel like Glenn might have mentioned that to me. He's like, watch out for it warping if you put too much glue on it.
MDF or plywood?
This is cardboard.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So it's the double hard cardboard that's like multiple layered, and it's laminated kind of on the sides. It's the thing that we got a TV for Christmas, and the box was heavy duty, so it wouldn't get knocked around. And I took the opportunity to cut it up, smooth it out. I think if I seal in the edges with the putty and paste when I'm like covering it, that it's not as likely to warp. But I'm going to do 1 or 2 smaller versions of it and see what it does, and then do it on one of the bigger pieces and see how bad it looks.
I have heard that if you take the cardboard and pay attention to the corrugation of it, and you glue two pieces together at 90-degree angles as far as the supportive corrugation inside goes, that will help address the warping issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll try that, but
it does give you a very thick base, though.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think I would like. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna. I generally don't put a ton of stuff on it in terms of like things that would be wet that would dry to warp it. So I'll do a couple test pieces before I commit to putting any flock or paint on it and stuff like that, because I certainly don't want to waste my time with stuff that's not going to be durable. But it's so much. It's nice and light. It's cheap. I can do it with a box cutter instead of with a
Yeah, you only have to buy a 700 TV to get the box.
Yeah, exactly. Or a refrigerator. Whatever. I also cut out a bunch of circles with a one of those special attachments for the drill. So I have like a ton of 4-inch perfect diameter circles that I'm intending to use to make a bunch of objective markers. And I also have a sketched outline of the treasure trove I'm going to make for Mike Tunez, if and when we ever get to go to a convention again that he's at, because I have it all sketched out what it's going to look like, and I have the hot glue gun stuff down on a piece of MDX, and then I should be able to sort of do the lacquer and base pieces for it this week, and I'll keep making progress. So I'm going to post an article about that probably end of the month, once I have all the steps down and I've taken all my photos. But I'll kind of walk you through how to make your own if you're curious about that. I'm going to use a lot of glitter, really more for Mike's sake than for mine. I have like a glitter kit with like 25 different colors of glitter, so I'm going to use it to make it look like there's gems cascading off of stuff and gold coins, things like that. So I'm very excited to make this look as gaudy and terrible as possible. I'm sure Mike looks forward to it as well. Other than that, I haven't really gotten any games in. Mostly just been painting a little bit at a time, and I'm designing a new course, and so that does take up a lot of my free time because I'm kind of planning a week out each time. And I'm teaching a course in international relations, and I have to do everything from scratch. They're also reintroducing every kid back into the school in mid-April. We learned that today. so
Wait, so you're gonna bring him in for a month and send him back home?
They'd be no, because this is New York, so the school goes till the end of June. So they'd be brought back after April break, then they'd be there for April, May, and June, and then they're gone for the summer. And we're also in the midst of a truncated sports season where they're doing 4-week seasons for all the sports, kind of like all at the same time. So like football is playing like 11 games in 5 weeks. It's going to be like brutal. And then basketball is, so it's like a juggling carnival of insanity at the high school where I work. And we're trying to make it work and give kids the best experience they can get while not turning ourselves into a COVID factory. And so far, so good, So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. Curious what April will bring. I think we actually reintroduced everybody back in person on my birthday in April. So happy birthday. Happy birthday to me.
Yeah.
All right. So we are going to continue our review of missions from the book. We will then do our bet, and then we'll deal with the trivia question. So who wants to take the Escort mission? This is out of the Behind the Line book.
I can read through this one. I think I've read through most of these.
I was going to say, I nominate Tyler to continue reading them.
Yeah, Tyler's going
to. So the mission is... I try. The mission is Escort. The defender is trying to move an important figure to safety, and the attacker is trying to stop them. So they have a special rule in here for the dignitary. All of the Escort scenarios use a special model referred to as the dignitary. Dignitary is a non-combat model that must be attached to a non-mounted unit in the defender's force at the start of the game. The Dignitary gains the experience level, skills, and special rules of the unit, but not the weapons, so they can't really fight. The Dignitary cannot make a ranged attack or participate in a melee combat, but may be removed as a casualty from a ranged attack or from melee combat. If you're playing this on land, the setup, the entire board is land terrain. No specific terrain setup is required. Scenario rules: the attacking units that use lay in wait scenario special rule must set up at least 9 inches from the center of the board. And the force with the greatest number of mounted models is automatically the attacker in this scenario.
Ooh, interesting. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, so you can force an attack if you bring a whole bunch of horses, or you can be the defender if you just don't bring any.
I would bet you could bring a minimal number of horses and still force the attack.
Yeah.
Considering how most horses are made up.
Yeah, exactly. We've talked about that before.
So for deployment, the defending player chooses one corner of the board. The attacker will deploy units in the opposite corner on the same long edge. So you're actually starting, you're going to be standing on the same side of the table together, essentially.
Well,
this is not good for socially distanced gaming. Forces deploy as shown in the diagram that you guys cannot see. Please note the attackers and defenders' forces may both be split, and the attacker has the option to move some units onto the board from the opposite edge. So they're going to take, you're each going to take a corner along one of the long edges. So you're both going to be on the, say, north side of the table. The attacker can then move up to half of their models in from the opposite diagonal corner to them. So they can kind of hem in the defender. They have to move onto the board. If you've played bolt action or anything like that, you're familiar with that. You kind of start off board, measure in, and that's where you're at. When the attacker moves any cannons onto the board, they start the game with 4 reload markers. Heavy cannon may be moved onto the board as a dedicated action, but must be placed within 4 inches of the board edge. Game length, 6 turns. The objective: the defender gains 2 strike points at the end of any turn if the dignitary has been removed as a casualty. The defender gains a strike point at the end of turn 3 if the dignitary is not within 4 inches of the center point of the board. Defender gains a strike point at the end of turn 6 if the dignitary is not within 6 inches of the escape edge. And the attacker gains a strike point at the end of turn 6 if the dignitary has not been removed as a casualty. The attacker automatically loses if the dignitary moves off the escape edge of the board.
This is really interesting. I don't think I've ever looked at this one before we said we're going to cover it. Yeah, like, so it's. I'd be curious to see how this plays in like a tournament setting, because this is not something I believe people would have built something for specifically.
Also, as usual, I feel the need to point out that if you're not playing on a 4x3 table like the book talks about, you definitely need to make sure that when you're losing your foot, you're cutting 6 inches off of each side and not just adjusting everything down, because that'll affect your middle distances and angles and things like that.
That's true.
That makes sense. But this actually, Tom, you should know this mission inside and out. And you know why?
What's that?
Because this is Breakthrough from Flames of War.
Oh, yeah. That's why it looks so familiar.
Yeah,
You're
that's
absolutely
exactly
right.
what this is.
Which leaves me with the same question that I always feel like I answer incorrectly when I play that mission in Flames of War, which is, like, under what circumstances does it make sense for you to actually split your force? Because it gives you the option, because it says you may move up to 50% of your model. So you're deploying on the same side of the board as the defender who's trying to, move his dignitary, but you have the option of putting stuff in the opposite corner from where you deploy and do the pincer move thing, like Tyler mentioned. So I guess, like, under what circumstances would you split it?
So this is actually slightly different from Flames in that the defender can deploy along the corridor through the middle. So I would point out here, if the attacker deploys entirely in the one corner, and doesn't put any flankers out, then they're going to have an issue in that the defender can just, like, as they move towards the center of the table, the defender can kind of just, like, effectively head south and just do, like, a U-bend out of the way.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
To get away from their guys. So you definitely want to have some flankers out there just to kind of keep the defenders honest and make sure that they're going straight for the escape edge.
So you would always see yourself as giving yourself a few people on the other side?
At least one unit, just to make sure that...
Yeah.
Tyler, you think the same thing?
Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing. And the other thing, I have not played Flames of War, so I honestly don't know how the activations and whatnot work in that. If it's I go, you go.
It's I go, you go.
Okay. In this, you have to bring in those flankers on the first turn, but you don't have to bring them in on your first card.
Right.
Yes.
So you can wait until, your very last card that you play, and then pop a unit of cavalry onto the board and have the choice based on what your opponent is already doing, if they have units unloaded. Like, normally you want to deploy and cover if you're going to start the game. You want to be somewhat conservative with your deployment. But if you're waiting until the end of the first turn, you could burst onto the board with cavalry and just haul, 18 inches or whatever you want to do. Not 18, sorry, 16. I don't know why I was thinking 6-inch move. But yeah, I mean, you could get onto the board and just really tear in quickly, or, if you need to, you can kind of scoot into cover.
Well, I guess that's why they're having the cavalry people be the attacker. Can you imagine if you were the cavalry guy and you're the defender and you just, ride the person off into the sunset?
You can't put them with a mounted unit.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay, you're absolutely right.
I think they did think of that.
You just took away one of the ways I would try to cheat without realizing it.
So
I'm sure somebody did that once.
The only weird part, I understand the one where it's like you get a strike point if you're not within 6 inches of the board edge by turn 6. But the weird one to me is you get a strike point if you're not within 4 inches of the center point at turn 3. Only because if you can get further past that,
yeah,
I
think it's definitely put there in part to keep the game going, because you have to stay close or you're taking a risk.
Well, okay.
You can't move that fast.
So for perspective, I actually, again, being a nerd, did the math. And if you deploy at the very corner of the defender's 12-inch box for deployment of the dignitary, and you go straight for the closest escape edge, which
12 inches from the corner.
Well,
any point along the opposite board edge, 12 inches from the opposite corner.
Yeah, actually, I just realized if you're playing on a 3x3, it's technically the 12-inch long side that's closer to the attacker's deployment zone, but I'm guessing you're not going for that one.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So if you're going for that closest board edge corner, it's still 35 inches, which is going to take you 12 movement actions to get there. And that's without any that's just linear movement, not having to go around rough terrain or anything like that.
So if you're not quick and you don't take a point of fatigue, you are barely going to make it there.
Yeah.
Because if you move more than 8 inches a turn, you get a point of fatigue.
Yeah.
Yes.
Huh.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, speed is the key. Do you even need that strike point at turn 3 thing? Because I feel like if you're not close, you're
if you're not there by then.
If you go, my point, if you're not near the center by end of turn 3, you're probably hosed. But my point is that if you're past the center, you take a strike point, just because you've gone too fast. But that would take some effort to get to that.
Yeah.
So let's just kind of summarize this and say, like best practices for the attacker in this scenario of Escort would be what? Best practice.
I think best practice is to take your large force and head. Oh, that was the other thing I wanted to talk about. The attacker is always starting. Both of their forces are about 2 feet away from that closest escape route that I was talking about.
Right.
So you're going to want to have your guys start moving that way, but they only have to go 6 movement actions to get there from the closest point.
Okay.
Which means they can be there well ahead of the dignitary.
Because the other group has to move across the entire length of the table at a diagonal.
Right.
If it's 4x3.
As the attacker, you could actually have your main force go straight for the exit point, and then have your flanker force go towards the middle of the table.
To try to tie them up and slow them down.
You want to tie them up and slow them down, and then if they get through all of those shenanigans, then they still got to move your entire main force, which is turned into a blocking force.
Okay, that makes sense. And then, Tyler, best practices for the defender.
For the defender?
Kind of talked about, yeah. If you're the dignitary.
Just based on what Glenn pointed out, which was something that if he didn't, I was going to bring up, for the attackers just being able to sit in that escape zone, you are hard pressed as the defenders in this one. One of your units is broken down to just running every turn.
Yeah.
And I would say, you use your sailors or whoever you've got that isn't that great at fighting, but you're going into this as a land battle. You probably don't have guys that are just chaff pistol fighters. By the time you do that, you'll end up playing as the attacker.
Right.
So one of your units is already tied up, and then you need to get across the table. So as the defender, I would almost pile as many troops into that 3-inch corridor along the diagonal of the board as I could to stop that tactic of mobbing up on the escape route.
Okay.
Yeah, that is the plus side. The defender can deploy along the entire route.
Yeah.
So you probably want to pick some solid defensible terrain, both around the center and near the escape side, and then just try to hold off the attacking units while creating an open corridor for your dignitary to run through.
Yep.
Okay.
Just kind of charge out at anything that gets close to you, and I would try and set up an island in the middle and an island at the far end, and then just run.
And just run from island to island.
Yeah.
All right. This brings us to rescue, which is the second one we're going to talk about. So to kind of, I'll read this, I guess, then you guys can do the analysis. But to kind of paint a visual picture for people that are here, you have a 4x3 board. You have a line drawn across the middle long ways, and the defender deploys in basically a rectangular box right in the middle of the board. So setup, the entire board is land terrain, but no specific terrain setup is required. Rules. Defender's force includes the captured merchant character for free, which represents the captured enemy officer. Fielding this model always follows the rules for characters as explained in page 155. The captured merchant cannot be removed as a casualty from a ranged attack unless there are no other models left in the unit to remove as casualties. So you can't snipe them or pick them off. Deployment. Forces are deployed as shown on the deployment diagram. Defender sets up units first in that little box right in the middle. Attackers' units are not placed on the board during deployment. They are held off the table. Those units move in anywhere along the indicated board edges during the first turn of the game. And you have like a marked area, but basically the long edges if it's a 4x3. When units are off the board in this fashion, activation cards are drawn for those units at the start of the turn, which they will move onto the board. When the attacker moves any cannons onto the board, they start the game with 4 reload markers. Heavy cannon may be moved onto the board as a dedicated action, but must be placed within 4 inches of the board edge. It may not be moved again for the rest of the game. Heavy cannon cannot be moved into a structure or rough terrain. Game length 6 turns.
I just
Objective.
realized it only limits heavy cannons from being moved into a structure.
Only heavy
so-
cannons, yes.
Wow. You can drag a medium cannon into a watchtower.
Field artillery there, yeah. All right. Objectives. Defender gains a strike point at the end of any turn if the captured merchant is attached to an attacker's unit. Attacker gains a strike point after turn 6 if the captured merchant is attached to a defender's unit. Attacker and defender both lose immediately if the captured merchant is removed as a casualty. So does that mean they both lose? They're both marked as having lost if the guy dies? Because the goal is to like get the guy, right?
Right. They have a hostage for some reason. The attackers are trying to rescue the hostage, and if the hostage dies, both people are in a bad spot.
So everybody, this is a lose-lose situation. So, don't
shoot the merchant.
Don't shoot the merchant.
So if you're really looking like you're going to lose, you may as well get him shot.
So what you're saying is
Yeah, I had
the
that
real
thought,
goal
and
are the captured merchants we met along the way. Sorry, that didn't work at all.
I'm wondering if there's anything that prevents you from pulling that captured merchant until they're the last. It may be removed as a casualty from a ranged attack, but cannot be removed as a casualty from a melee combat.
But the scenario rule is also that they can't be removed from a ranged attack unless there's no other option. So essentially, you just have to like overkill.
Okay. So it's in the scenario rules. Gotcha.
Yeah. Although you do get a +1
You have
to
to
shoot
really
at the
mess
unit.
up. Yeah.
Like they make it harder to shoot at the unit because you don't want to kill the guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it would be difficult to do.
This whole mission is like a murderous fist fight. Like your goal is just to charge gloriously into the melee and grab the dude, right? Am I misreading that?
Seems like it. Or just shoot the defender's other units until they,
So would this
fail
give a
at
huge
strike
advantage
point.
to forces that are built to fight in close combat? Like big, like good, great melee units?
I
Would it
mean,
be...
kind of. I don't know. Like, the attacker has to move on and cover some ground. Like, the attacker's units have to go, like, 15 plus inches. So you've got at least 4 turns of movement during which the defender can shoot at you. Again, the defender's in the middle, and the attacker can come on from either side. So I'm thinking that the attacker wants to put stuff on either side to make sure that the defender doesn't just immediately start backing away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
away from you.
Yeah, this is one of those cases where you have a choice, but you really don't, because you want to make sure that you have him focused in both directions. Otherwise, it puts you at a huge disadvantage if you're the attacker.
That said, I did point out that you have it's a 4x3 board, and you have the middle 24 essentially as a defender, as far as the length to deploy. So you're about 12 inches from either board side. You can go with kind of a refused flank situation here, where you deploy all to one side, and you just try to put yourself against the board edge on the short side. However, the attacker can easily respond to you doing this because you deploy all your stuff first and they move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not as guaranteed as you might think, but it also allows the defender to pick some nice terrain to just hole up in.
I feel like in most cases, this is a mission that's going to lend itself to just like a fight to the death. Like you're either going to make it 6 turns and it's going to be a stalemate, or you're not going to make it to 6 turns because you're going to get shot or chopped off the board.
It's the Rourke Drift mission.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's cool. It's thematic and it's different from just like a meeting engagement style mission. But I think in execution, it's going to wind up looking like that. You have the two forces kind of just clashing in the middle, and then that's kind of it.
I mean, if you got 2 shooting forces, you're probably going to have them start shooting each other, and then it's just whoever hits that strike test first.
Yeah.
But yeah, ideally as a defender, you're a shooty unit, or you're a shooty, and the attackers are melee, and they have to cross large open areas. Whereas, as the attacker, that's kind of the nightmare scenario, is that you're a melee guy going against shooty, and then vice versa is also terrible, where if you're, as a defender, you're a melee person, and the attacker's shooty, they just walk on the board edge and start shooting you.
Well, I feel like that's something that maybe suggests that you're better off trying to balance your force to do a bunch of different things.
Yeah, I mean, if you're coming into these, as always, if you're coming into these scenarios and you know you're playing this scenario, you can build whatever list you think is going to be successful.
Right.
If we're throwing these into a tournament, as always, you want to have a balanced list. You want to have, a skirmishing unit, a fast unit, a melee unit, like down the line.
think so. Looking at the objectives on this one, the best practice for the attacker, I think really that the captured merchant, the officer, whoever you're trying to rescue, kind of a MacGuffin. You could really lose the game based on that. What you're actually doing is just the defender just has to hold for 6 turns. I haven't played a lot of games of Blood and Plunder that went the full 6 turns before someone was striking casualties.
Yeah, I would agree.
That attacker isn't going to gain a strike point until turn 6. It's a 6-turn game.
Yes.
So you're fine. Just sit there and shoot the bejesus out of them in the middle of the table and just hope that they bleed out.
Yeah, that's true.
I wouldn't even try to charge in for the attacker because, like Glenn said, if you have to clear any kind of open ground, you're going to get beat up. Blood and Plunder seems to prefer the defender in any kind of a melee combat because when you attack in, you lose the actions on your card initially for the moving in, declaring the charge. But the defender is like, oh, I've got a club. Sure thing, I'm going to hit you 3 times. Or, with the dedicated action, they just get a lot of bonuses to that hit. And the stand and shoot, the defensive actions, and things like that. And you're potentially right in the middle of their entire army. So whatever unit you send in there is like, hey, we got the guy, and then just gets dogpiled.
Yeah, that's true.
So I would just hang out and shoot them up.
I mean, if the defenders are all busy dogpiling, whatever unit did get in there, it does leave the other units to either approach or, pick off whoever didn't dogpile.
True. You might be able to kind of force the issue quickly running in and grabbing that strike point, at the end of a turn. Hold the merchant for a turn and your opponent has to test.
And see if you get lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, presuming that they're already down.
True.
Right.
Yeah, you'd have to have them.
If it only puts you up by 1, it doesn't matter.
All right. Well, for the sake of time, I'd say let's go ahead and move because I don't want to try to stick to our time, right? So
who does that?
That brings us to our bets. So as a reminder to listeners, Glenn, what was your bet last time? What did you promise to finish?
All right. So bet last time, my goal was to complete 8 musket sailors. With the penalty of I'd have to ship Tom some lamb.
Which we reflected back on the episode and we didn't realize just how long we spent talking about cooking. So, we apologize to people that were either hungry or didn't want to hear about, eating delicious things. But yeah, so you succeeded, right, Glenn?
I did. I paint in groups of 12, so I may as well start making the goals 12 of whatever I'm painting because 8's just whatever. I got 12 musket sailors done, not just the 8, and then I got those bonus milicianos done as well, which is what I'm really happy about. So now I need to figure out my goal for this time.
Okay, and we're gonna do something.
Yours first.
So Yeah. So what's your goal? What do you think?
Well,
What's your goal?
I don't want to say I'm ahead on figures because, like, knock on wood, fall behind, having not worked on figures for a month. Oh, we should talk about. Tom had an idea. Tom.
So my idea is to kind of spice up our bet since they're proving to be so motivating, and they'll be.
And yet we're achieving them.
And we're achieving them. So you might as well play with it. And the suggestion would be this: Glenn's going to come up with a possible goal for himself, and I'm going to suggest a possible challenge that he can try to hit. And he can choose to take that challenge, or he can choose to just stick with the goal he set for himself. But it's a fun way for us to kind of push the other person, I would say. And it's not a requirement, it's just a suggestion. So
do we have to decide right tonight that we're taking the challenge, or just whatever we turn up with at the end of the month?
I think we need to decide which one we're going to do. Because I think we need to decide. So my challenge for you.
Wait, hold on. Let me set my own goal first.
Okay. All right.
God, man. I want to get my sloop of war built through rigged by the end of the month.
Okay.
All right. So complete a sloop of war.
All right. So Tom's challenge suggestion
that includes painted. I said built through rigged, so it's built, painted, rigged.
Built, painted, rigged.
And I have sales for it. So
okay. It's ambitious, but
it is.
You can pull it off. I think you can pull it off for sure.
Done ships in less time.
So here's my challenge. All right. I was contacted by Glenn's wife.
Oh, God.
Who asked me to try to find a way to motivate him to clean his game room. Okay. And this is the best thing I could think of. So my challenge to you is to clean the game room.
Whoa, we need to set some serious parameters about this.
And that's perfectly fine because I haven't been there. I haven't seen it. I don't know what it looks like. Okay, so I would say to get the game room to a condition where you can play a game on a clean table.
Well, I'm almost there. That's not... But for the record, like, I have a table that is mostly cleaned off to the point where I can game on it. I have enough walkway around it to get around the table. But aside from that, it looks like a storage unit from Storage Wars.
All right, so is this an episode of, like, Hoarders Buried Alive? Like,
no, it's not quite that bad.
Can you see wall behind the boxes, or are you to the ceiling?
All right, so what's a fair parameter to suggest? Like what? Like, and I understand that what Corinne thinks of as clean is not necessarily what you would think of as clean, and I don't want to hold you to her standard. And I understand that.
Disagreements about that.
So, what do you think would be fair?
Oh man, see, this is so. Spoiler alert: my birthday is this month, and I told her I'm taking off for it, and she's already decided that she's just kicking me down into the basement for my birthday, so I can just clean all day.
I see. What a gift.
Which was, that's definitely why I took off work for my birthday.
Isn't it what we all take off work to do?
Yeah. So you can just spend the day cleaning. Yeah.
I will also point out, this is a voluntary thing. You do not need to accept this time around, but I wanted to suggest it as an option.
I would say, like, have the table cleaned off and have the walkway around the table.
Okay. I'm down for that. So that's the challenge, and which you can take. You can take the challenge, or you can rig and paint the sloop, but it's an either-or proposition.
I'm going with the sloop, because
no problem. I'm just gonna throw it out there. I'm just throwing it out there. All right. The penalty for not getting it done.
Clean anyway. No.
I've already been dedicated to cleaning it, right? So
yeah, you're probably cleaning anyway.
There will be work done on the basement. Although she and I started a weight loss challenge, and I need to get to the stair stepper that's down there. So
good point. Okay, double motivation.
Finding time to use it is a different thing, but I do need to clean up around that area too.
Here's my suggested penalty. I want a photoshopped picture of your head on one of those like pirate paintings, like that are from Benderson Little's books. Like I want like a Photoshop picture that I can like hang up.
Are you
of,
talking like one of
you.
those like 17th century sketches where like everything's out of proportion?
No, like one of those like epic, like, you know, romantic era paintings of like, you know, swashbucklers, like Captain Blood style. So
Oh, okay.
totally historically inaccurate, those kind of things.
Got it. Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay.
Actually, I'd say Glenn's head and Tyler's and mine on the painting. This way we can use it as like a
Why do I have to be part of this? I'm not even betting anything.
I want it. I just want it.
I'm not really feeling like this is a much of a penalty, but okay, let's go with it. Because if this happens, you know it's becoming like the group stock image. On
Exactly. So it's like, I don't know. It's a win-win.
Anyway.
It's a win-win.
All right. All right, Tom. What did you have to do last time, you crazy guy?
My goal was 8 pikemen, 4 European sailors, 4 upgraded sailors, and Lorenz de Graaf for a grand total of 17 models painted. I succeeded in this challenge thanks to the fact that I finally got a Dremel tool that let me bore holes in the pikemen's hands so they can hold the pike. It just had to happen. I refused to just. This had to happen. So it kept slowing me up, but I finally got it done. I got it done at the last minute, but I got it done.
Yeah, I honestly didn't think he was going to make it.
It was close. I managed to finish basically 12 models in 2 hours.
Yeah, and honestly, I think it's because you far exceeded your bedtime, going to bed at like 11 instead of 10.
I did. It was brutal. It was brutal. It was a dark day. All right, so I'd say my goal this time. So the Spanish are out of the box. Okay, and I got some options here, but they're basically. I think I have 52 Spanish, so that's going to be 16 Lanceros is my goal. And then I await Glenn's.
Go for it. Part of it is I don't know what you have, because I know you have a more limited collection. And by more limited, I mean you're not as compulsively purchasing things.
So the stuff I have is Milicianos Indios, the 16 Lanceros, 16 of the Milicianos, and 16 of the Marineros. I also have 3 blisters of casualties and another cannon crew. Those are the only models I have left that are not painted.
Oh, so I was going to say, we had talked about doing a Spanish challenge, but obviously with me doing a Sloop of War.
So I mean, we can always come back to the Spanish challenge because I'll have plenty of Spanish to paint.
Yeah, so do I.
The other thing that I was debating putting on my list of stuff to do, to give you like ideas or suggestions, would be to actually build some of these terrain pieces, because I don't have any completed hills or jungle pieces, and like a big part of the stuff I plan to do this year is terrain. So if you had a terrain-based suggestion, I would take that for sure.
Finish painting the flute.
Ooh,
that's the challenge,
right? Oof.
I know you're half done. Just finish painting the flute.
You know what?
I'm not even sure I'm going to say rig the thing, because I don't know if you have sails or anything like that.
I do have sails. I think I have Adam Horton sails.
Okay, well then, okay. So I'm doing a brigantine hull, which isn't as big as a flute, but it is still a fairly decent-sized ship. So I'm going to take that from 0 to done. You need to take yours from halfway to done. Finish painting.
All right, challenge accepted. Challenge accepted. I am taking Glenn's challenge which means the flute is completely finished, which includes rigging and sails.
And the Spanish question is left for next month.
Is left for next month? That's fine. All right. Suggested penalty.
Oh man, it's just a penalty. Last time it was just the video of the flute.
The flute was the penalty, yeah.
Yeah.
The flute's been like haunting my dreams. I kind of got penalized anyway for winning, but I feel like I've done this to myself, so I don't know.
Man, I want to. I thought about this during this week, and I just couldn't come up with something that I really liked. Tyler, you got any ideas? I'm.
Oh, you could make him sing for you. You've been listening to pirate chants.
That.
I was in an a cappella group in high school, and I performed in musical theater, both in high school and college. So I could record you a little song if you wanted.
Did we lose Glenn?
I don't know. Maybe we
No,
lost Glenn.
you haven't lost me. I'm sorry. I was contemplating.
Glenn's just
I'm also
pondering.
trying to think if I can somehow work in rubber ducks.
You should have me singing "Rubber Ducky, You're the One," the Bert and Ernie standard.
Yeah, I was considering that.
Okay, that's it then.
You know what?
Marinate your favorite duck.
I almost wanted to say get a recording of you and your wife singing it, but that's she'd never agree.
He'd get the flute painted. She'd be there with house paint and a roller if she had to be.
No, like during paint night, she would literally be standing over me with a knife to make sure that she did not need to say something related to rubber ducks. Because I have like 200 rubber ducks. I mean, you saw the post I made because the administrators at my school are doing like a little raffle, and they set up that huge like in the principal's conference room like a kiddie pool and like a fake plastic blow up palm tree and stuff like that. It was beautiful. I was so happy. It was a great end of the day. So yeah, all right. So I will sing that and record it, and you could use it.
Comment on that with a GIF, by the way.
You could use it to like blackmail or whatever you want to do with it.
I think you're just gonna be posting it on the Facebook group, so
That's fair. That's fair.
So if you did it with a pirate hat on,
I think I'm gonna finish that flute. Is the end of this. All right. Which brings us to the trivia game. All right. So, so Tyler, why don't you walk us through the process from last week and explain how this works, and then we'll do last time and we'll do this time.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have a soundboard or something if we were going to do that. So this is Blood and Pedantry, the trivia portion of our podcast. The rules. Please send your responses to talesofthesail@gmail.com. That's tales with an E, not an I. By the end of the month. So this month, March. So by the end of March, we will select a winner at random from the correct answers. You have to get the answer right. Winner and answer will be announced on the April podcast, and we will be in touch for shipping info. Last time, or would someone else like to cover that?
Yeah, I asked the question.
Go ahead, Glenn. This is your question.
I did. Yeah. Since I am also the one aggregating the answers, I did want to have somebody else roll. So somebody else will be rolling live for the winner in a minute. But the prize was a blister of North American Braves or Coeur de Bois. We've talked about it, and I think we're going to be a bit more generous and just send you both. So I don't have to worry about you picking the one you like best. You just get opposing forces. Or friends, depending on, how you want to do it. The question. In the United States, we often refer to the French and Indian War, but there was actually more than one. How many French and Indian Wars were there, and what were their individual names? While we had a couple of interesting answers, the correct answer is that there were 4 wars in total, including King William's War, Queen Anne's War, also known as Dummer's War, King George's War, also known as the War of Jenkins' Ear, and the originally named French and Indian War, but also known as Father Lelouter's War or Lelout's War. I'm not really. It's a French name. I don't know.
All right, and I believe we had 10 correct answers.
We did. We had perfectly 10 correct answers. So, folks, just email us, give it a stab. 10 is too good of odds for this kind of stuff.
All right, so I'm gonna roll the die. We have a
some
name.
Free blisters. Yeah. Yep. So I have them labeled 1 through 10 here on the show notes, and Tom's rolling a die.
All right. Survey says number 7 is the winner, and that is going to be
Dave Letizia.
Dave Letizia.
I think that's how you say his last name. Out in Arizona.
Nice.
Yep. He's one of our regular paint night guys.
So he's going to get a package in the mail. So we will reach out to Dave and get that out to him as soon as we can.
And I know he's been having trouble painting the last few Firelock minis he's got, so here's some extra, Dave.
Here's some more.
Congratulations.
There's more.
So this
All
time,
right.
Tom got to choose the question, reward, etc. So
I'll do a couple
like
things.
It's
it's my fault. Thank you for that disclaimer, Glenn. I would also say that we also realized upon listening to the recording from last time that we said you could find it on Wikipedia, and then I proceeded to take a dump on Wikipedia and say how I had falsified Wikipedia once to mess with students. And in retrospect, that seems like a bit of a dodge. I purposely misled some people. So if you were deceived by me, I'm sorry. It was intended to be easy to look up. It was not.
I had literally intended that you could just kind of Google the answer if you wanted to. It's an open note test.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
So
as the history major, are you guys history majors or no? History major.
Chemistry and physics.
Yeah. Okay. Never mind. So as the only history major who should know more about this topic than these two, but doesn't, I feel obligated to give you the most difficult question I could. However, Tyler assured me that he was able to figure this out and look it up. So I tried to throw in a lot of hints here, but make it a little bit tricky because we're looking for the name of a fort, but we're in a lot of forts, right? So the prize this month is going to be a gun crew blister and a field cannon blister. All right, so you get a fully manned piece of artillery, probably similar to one of the ones that would have been found in this fort.
You know what? I'm going to up the ante. I'm going to up the ante a bit. You get 2 gun crew blisters because the field cannon blister contains 2 guns, and there's no reason you're going to have 2 men manning 1 gun each.
All right.
So
I can contribute some to that too. That's not a problem.
Enough guys to man a pair of field cannons.
All right, sweet. And if we get our doubloons soon, we can grab this stuff. But I think as of this recording, we don't know where those doubloons are hiding. They could be buried somewhere off the coast of Bermuda.
This is where Tom's talking us into a hole again. Your prize will exist, whether there's doubloons or not.
Yeah, I know.
Doubloons or not.
All right. Anyway,
Shut up, Tom.
the question. I already have the stuff. Okay, I have the stuff. I don't need to order it. I have the cannon. I have the gun crew blisters. So you're getting it no matter what. All right. So the question, and we're looking for a fort name. Okay. Originally built by the French around 1735, this fort occupied a strategic position along a waterway in the northeast. Taken by the British in 1759, it was expanded enormously to enclose nearly 7 acres of territory, making it the largest fortification in North America built by the British, supposedly costing roughly 1/3 of Britain's military budget for that entire year. In 1773, a fire, rumored to be started by a woman trying to do laundry, destroyed the soldiers' barracks and detonated a powder magazine. A British engineer, upon reviewing the works, pronounced them, quote, a useless pile of earth. But despite all this, American founding fathers during the Revolution still thought it a strategic point and worthy of defense until Ben Franklin visited it on his way to Canada early in the Revolution to try to form an alliance with the Canadians. George Washington toured the fort in July of 1783. It marks the furthest point north he ever traveled in his life. What is the name of the fort? And I'm looking for the British name, not the French name, because they have a habit of renaming things when they take possession. Okay. Except for ships. All right. That takes us to the end, I believe.
Yeah. Unless anyone has any good recipes for lamb vindaloo that they'd like to share.
All right, well, I look forward to seeing if anybody answers the question, because Glenn's convinced that either nobody's going to get it or you'll be so enraged by the length of the question that you simply won't respond. But artillery could be yours if you're brave enough to try.
Yeah, field battery, for which they're not
Field
yet
battery,
released.
baby. Full
Although,
battery.
Allegedly that French and Indian War PDF is coming out any minute.
Allegedly.
That's right. I wonder if Joe Forrester will get this question right. I wonder if he knows.
I think he specializes in Spanish forts.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, he does. Yeah. All right. That's it for me, then. Glenn, you want to take us out?
Yep. Thanks for coming, everyone. Thanks for listening. And I look forward to hearing from you at talesofthesale@gmail.com with your trivia question and answers. So we'll be contacting our current winner for shipping info. And aside from that, we look forward to seeing you on... Oh, our next paint night is... Let's see, this will probably get out next week. So the paint nights in
March 12th.
March are the 12th and the 26th.
Correct.
So hopefully this is out before the 12th. It'll definitely be out before the 26th. We'll see you there, where you can get updates on any of the painting bets going on and hear us rib each other about whatever's going on. But everything's opening up, so we should be able to start talking about upcoming events next month.
Ooh.
Here's hoping.
Anyways. And congratulations again to Dave Letizia.
Yep.
Being the first ever trivia winner.
Exactly. All right. Thanks for coming, everyone. Bye.
Thanks so much for joining the show tonight. Remember to follow us on Twitter at NoDiceNoGlory. And keep the conversation going on NoDiceNoGlory.com, now featuring our own message boards. Have a great night, everybody.